Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Soulcast Media live event. If everybody can see me and can hear me, give me a thumbs up on your end, whether you're watching on your phone or on a desktop. There's a little thumbs up button. Give me that thumbs up. It's our only way to make sure that the audio is working on your end. So again, if you can hear me and see me all right, give me a thumbs up on your end. But want to welcome everybody to our Soulcast Media live event. I am absolutely thrilled to have my two guests join me in just a few minutes. But before I bring them up, I want to welcome everybody. You are here at our Women Leadership in the Workplace. And as we were doing the countdown, I was looking at all the folks who are dialing in. I love seeing where people are dialing in from. And the great thing about these virtual events, we actually have an international audience. We have folks in New Zealand, in Canada, Nigeria, of course, here in the States as well. I'm based here in Southern California. My two guests are up in the Bay Area. I'll have them introduce themselves in just a little bit. But again, I am just thrilled to be here. Now, we want you to know that this event is also about you. We want to make sure that if you have any questions, any comments, as my guest and I are chatting, please throw it into the chat function because we want to make sure we answer any questions related to women leadership in the workplace. It's a topic that's close to me and my guests and I. Now, before we kick off the event, I want to do a quick intro of who I am. For those who don't know, my name is Jessica Chen, and I'm the founder and CEO of Soulcast Media, and we are a communications training company. We've been very fortunate to work with some of the top companies around the world to help their teams level up what we believe is one of the most important skills at work, great communications. So I'm very excited to be hosting our Soulcast Media live events because it's just another way for us to communicate with you to help you level up this skill. Now, without further ado, I want to just kick off this event. So today, our topic is all about women leadership in the workplace. My two guests are fantastic leaders in their own respective industries. We have somebody who is an executive in the healthcare industry. We have somebody who's an executive in the law industry, which is kind of cool because we have a very diverse, quote unquote, panel of folks who can talk about how did they both rise up in their industry. And I'm sure it was not easy. So with that, I want to invite my guests up. I want to introduce Dr. Jian Zhang. She is the CEO of the Chinese hospital systems in the Bay Area, and Nguyen Ruda, who is a partner of the executive committee of the global law firm BZBM. So I'm going to bring them up right now and introduce them to everybody. Hello, Anne. Hello, Jian. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Jessica. Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to you and your audience.
We are so thrilled. And just so you know, we have over 75 people live right now who are tuning in and watching. So let's just kick it off. I'm going to first throw it to Jian. Please introduce yourself, the work that you do. We would love to learn a little bit about you.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah. So I'm Jian Zhang, CEO of Chinese Hospital Health System here in San Francisco. And so Chinese Hospital is actually a 123-year-old hospital in San Francisco. It's not just a hospital. We have multiple clinics. We also own a health plan, which is a managed care health plan. And we work closely with our physicians as an integrated system to provide a culturally sensitive and linguistically appropriate care to our community.
I love it. So, Anne, love to learn a little bit more about you and the work that you do as well.
So I'm a labor and employment attorney by specialty. I joined the Bartco firm in San Francisco about, ironically, in January 2020, just right before the pandemic hit. This has been just a great place for me to be. One thing that it was very special about this firm in terms of the environment was also what the managing shareholder said to me, as we were discussing my transition to the firm. And it shows you how people can support women. Because he said to me, you don't take someone like you and put rules on them. You say, there are no rules. What can you do? So it is something that's always stuck with me. And as we speak today, I'll talk about the mentors that I've had that have just really supported my growth and development.
So we really have an international audience here today, and I can confidently say everybody who's tuning in right now care about this topic. Either if you're a woman, maybe you have that aspiration to become a leader in your industry. Actually, I'm curious, for those who are joining right now, let us know what industry you are in. Type it into the chat function. As you all know, Jian is in the healthcare industry and in the law industry. I'm in, I guess you can say, communications, but I would love to hear from everybody who's live right now. What industry are you in? Where are you? What field are you dialing in from? So to kick it off, though, you mentioned this already, Anne. It's having mentors as a good way to elevate your progression in your career. So I want to start with you, Anne. When you started many years ago, maybe not many years ago, but when you started in your career in the law industry,
Yeah.
how did you approach rising up? I'm sure this was something that maybe you were thinking about. How can I rise up in this industry? How did you approach? Was there like a strategic journey or path that you took?
I don't know that there's that much strategy, but I think it was more knowing that I wanted to be at the top of the game at some point. That was always my intent. I mean, I've always been competitive. I sometimes will tease and this to Jan too. We're the kids in 5th grade with the best binders, right? Because we stayed up all night to make the best binder. That's just who we are as people. So when I started as a young lawyer, I didn't try to look for a mentor in an obvious place. I didn't intentionally go out there and say, hey, I need a woman of color to be my mentor. It was just like, who is going to support me in my growth and development and give me opportunities? And that can come in many different forms. So I started at a firm called Crosby, and my mentor actually was a older gentleman, older white male who mentored me, gave me opportunities. Then I was very fortunate to move to my next firm, and my mentor there is and was Luzanne Fernandez. She's been my mentor for the last 15 years, and we joined this firm together. And then when I got to this firm, I picked up additional mentors. So the mentor bus just grew. And that is what I think was important. And what I would say is be very broad in who your mentors are. There are going to be natural people who are going to give you the right signals that they want to support you. And they can come in all different shapes, colors, genders, backgrounds. So just be attuned to it. I think that was one thing that has really supported my success, is not to have a preconceived notion of who my mentor should be.
And not to go at it alone, honestly, right? John, I want to get your thoughts on this. So when you were starting out in your career, how did you think about navigating and eventually getting to this amazing role as CEO of the Chinese hospital systems?
Something. I also have mentors, and I have many of them. And so it's very interesting. As an international student, my situation was very different. I read Jessica's your story, right? So you were born here, you were introvert, and how you transformed, like now, like totally a top leader. So to me, it's the other way around, actually. So I was born and grew up in China, and so I actually believe that leadership actually started early at home and at school. And so I was very lucky actually that I didn't have parents like other Asian parents tell them that don't talk back. My parents actually allow that. So growing up, I was really considered an oddball, and I actually always talk back, always have new ideas and things like that. And when I got to school, I was very confident, and I got into a lot of speech competition and all those, always the class president. So was considered a natural leader in China. And when I came to this country, now English was my second language, right? So in a sudden, not just lost that public speaking skill, or and actually lost my confidence too. So, and then I was quiet in classroom in UCSF, and then I didn't want to speak and in any events for a while. So then that was kind of difficult for me in a way. Then I always thought that, okay, I'll change my career path. I would be a clinician instead of a leader. You can see that, huh? And definitely say, yeah, that's not Jen. But I was for a while. I actually literally was thinking that I probably should be just a clinician. So as I work as a clinician, then there are a lot of areas I realized that it need improvement. But only way to make a change is to take on a leadership role, right? Like more so a management position, so you can actually change. And so realizing my weakness, so what I did, so I moved out of UC Storm, and I lived in American family, forced myself to speak English, and then also work as an IA research assistant at UCSF, and then so forced myself to talk to professors so I can learn the professional English too, and more so the speaking language is not that much of writing. Writing was okay, or reading was okay. It's more so of the like oral
Mhm.
English. And so I did that for a while, and then later on, when I was working as a clinician, I actually forced myself to get out of the comfort zone. I took on a consultant role for Gilead Sciences as a speaker. Can you believe it? So I actually took as a speaker at the beginning. So I paced myself to work as a community speaker only. That way, so I didn't have to talk to the doctors or the nurses. I talked to patients. And then so later on that, I also took on the professional speakers role too. The good thing about that, I love that. I think that make a huge difference because it forces you out of your comfort zone. Then you actually have to talk, have to speak. And then later on, then I actually got the opportunity to be trained on a yearly basis because you're a speaker of Gilead. Gilead will offer training like public speaking, communication, all those skills. So I did that for over 10 years. I think on the kind of like during the process, I overcame that public speaking issues, language issues here. And then so when I took on the first management position, and that's the most difficult thing for a clinician, and then for me and for others too. How do you take on the first management position? How do you transition from a clinician or from any just a staff into a leadership role, right? So
Right.
that to me was the most difficult thing. And because two CEOs, our hospital CEO and the medical group CEO, interviewed me for 3 hours, keep asking me about my experience for financial management or management. I told them that I don't have any because apparently this is a first management position I'm interviewing. And I said, but I'm a quick learner and I'm willing to learn. And I learn very fast. And then that wasn't good enough, right? So they kept asking. And then later on, I said, well, if this helps, I started as an international student. I live in an American family. And then I graduated from UCSF, got a job, and I bought a house and moved out. That got their attention. So meaning I said, well, financial management is all about in and out, the balance, right? So I got my first management position. So for those who are trying to get on a management position, I think what you really need to do is kind of really find someone internally as your mentor. And so, or someone or your department head, you talk to them, say, I am interested in transitioning into a management position, what can I do? And a lot of leaders love to train people or to give them opportunities.
And Jian, what I love about your story is the fact that, I mean, there's just so many elements to it, and it wasn't the traditional path. And I love your focus. I'm a little biased. I love your focus on communications and really realizing that being able to speak confidently and clearly and concisely, obviously, these are really important skills. So, Anne, I want to throw it over to you now. So, Jian shared her story of how she eventually became a more manager role. But for you, Anne, we all started maybe after we graduated law school, we had to start as an associate, right? An analyst or whatever field we're in. But even in that role, you can already start to have that leadership mentality, right? How did you approach it?
I think I always approached it. I mean, one thing that Jan said that, I've always admired about her, and I try to have as kind of a guiding light for me, is do the things that are difficult, do the things that make you uncomfortable. And I always say to people, if something makes you uncomfortable, don't go around it, don't go over it, go through it. So, I didn't come to this country until I was 4. We were, refugees. We left Vietnam on a boat. We were we were in Indonesia, and then we emigrated, right? And so, the American story, the opportunities that America has given me is so important. And so when I, went to law school, went into legal practice and became an associate, I knew those early years were training years where I had to learn the craft. But if I was asked to do something, I was always the first person to volunteer. If there is an email sent out and it said, hey, who can work on this project? If the email was sent at midnight, I responded within 30 seconds. I'll do it, right? And as Jan said, I would go into someone's office and say, hey, I was at a big firm, because that firm eventually merged with Reed Smith, which is a global firm. My current firm is largely a California firm, although we have people working from other states as well. So when you're in such a large firm environment, you have to stand out. And as Jan said, you cannot be shy. If you want something, you need to go ask for it. So when I was a first year associate and I found this natural mentorship with Clyde Hutchinson, I went into his office and I said, I want to take a deposition this year. I want to work on cases. I want to do real lawyering. Can you help me?
Real lawyering. I love that.
I want to be a real lawyer. And so when he left that firm to go to a smaller firm, he told me, and I said, I'm coming with you. He said, you can't come with me. They can't pay you the same way. And I was like, well, how much less are they going to pay me? And he's like, I'm going to have to tell the firm that you want to come. And I said, okay. I took a $40,000 pay cut in 2001 to go work with him in a smaller firm because I knew I would learn the craft. And that $40,000 pay cut was an investment in my future. Wow. So I think that's one thing that people don't think about early in their career. If you're just chasing what is going to be the highest paycheck, you're going to miss those opportunities to invest in yourself.
What you just said, Anne, is what I consider golden nuggets for career success. And, when you were talking, I was scrolling through where people are, what industries they're in. And honestly, we have a whole range, which, by the way, we have over 90 people who are watching us right now, which is fantastic. And I love the variety of folks. We have folks, and of course, we have folks in healthcare, aviation, a lot in health and higher education as well. And I think what you just said is not just, of course, relevant to your industry. I think, this is relevant for every industry. It's being almost a bit strategic of thinking, because a lot of people go in with this mindset, whatever will give me the most pay, where can I go for that? But I love your approach of wait a second, maybe I do have to go one step back to go two steps forward. And you just said it paid off for you. Now, I want to open this up again to both of you, and maybe I'll start with you again, Anne. So, when you think back at how you were able to take that step back, for some folks, let's just assume maybe they're not early on in their career anymore. Maybe they're already maybe mid-level managers, and taking a step back would be incredibly difficult to do. So I want to help folks who are on this call who might be in a situation like that, who want to rise up a little bit, but they can't necessarily take a huge, step back to get two steps forward. What advice would you have for them if they're thinking about that?
I think if you think about it as taking a step back, then it's going to impact your self-esteem. Mm-hmm. I think you have to constantly be evaluating just kind of where you are. And as you're sitting where you are and with the people that you're with, is that where you want to be in this moment? And if the answer is no, that's not where I want to be, this is not who I want to be, then it's like you're planning, right? How do I get there? And if you make a plan, sometimes you have to start at the beginning. And, maybe, so one thing is, if I watch a movie and I don't like it, I'll stop watching it. If I read a book and I don't like it, I'll stop reading it. And honestly, if I'm spending time with you, it's because I want to, not because I have to. So that's the approach that I would take. Don't think about it as taking a step back. Think about it as making a new plan, right? You're on this plan and it's not working for you. Or, you went to a restaurant and you ordered this pasta and you messed up. You shouldn't have ordered the pasta. You should have ordered the pork chop. So you want to keep eating the pasta, ingesting those calories, or you want to say, you know what? I'll order the pork chop. I'm going to start over. Is that taking a step back? No, let's just eat something else. Sorry, I love food, so.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge foodie
like
too.
That.
I love that. People are actually totally agreeing with what you're saying too, Anne. So Jian, what are some of your thoughts in terms of people who are, let's say, not early on in their career anymore, but want to figure out how they can maybe even pivot? How would you encourage folks to do that?
So I really like what Anne said. I think that's the right way to do it. If in life, if you can do things you like and you're good at that, then you're you're blessed, right? That's the great way. But sometimes you're not, right? So you chose an area that you started, and then you were on certain level, but you find that you hate it, or you're not good at it, you're not enjoying it. And so it's for some people say, well, if I take a step back, that's the ego issue, or it really then my career, I'm going back, it's going to look bad on my resume. It's not. It's like, I think there's different way to do it. For some people, I kind of really, on the other way, I kind of want to speak about it. A lot of people like to do, or they're really good at kind of really making changes or take on management position, but it's impossible to get it at their current position in a large company. But what people should do is that go into a smaller company. Then they will allow you to do more things, right? So like I don't even remember when I only wore one hat. I always wore multiple hats. I always did multiple things at the same time. And then one thing is that stimulated me, because I need that stimulants, like to do different things to keep me going. And also too, then, because when you're on a lower level, you're building the foundations, right? Mm-hmm. You want to know more instead of really good at one thing. So for in a larger company, a lot of times you focus on that one thing. You're really good at it. For some reason, if they have a layoff or whatever happened, then when you're looking for a job, you can only look for that area. But if you're exposed, you're in a smaller company, you get to do different things. I have someone work with me for 4 years, like when kind of in a way that even though she was the marketing coordinator, but I got her involved in a lot of other things, right? Kind of work with me on grant writing, on special projects, on care coordinating, a lot of other things. And then when she got on this master program, and she told me, she said, Jen, thank you so much for exposing me. At that time, it seems like you're so busy, you work her. But then she's way ahead of her classmates, right? She knew a lot more. And so that kind of thing, that in real life too, like in smaller company, you get to learn a lot more things. So I think I encourage young people while they're exploring, and so go into a smaller company is not a bad thing, like really go in there and exposed to more areas, and then learn the skills, and then get on a management position. Then you can decide whether you want to stay in a smaller company, continue the track, or you can move on to a larger company, and then you have options, right? So that I think
a lot of people are actually, agreeing with you. And I like the way you say it's like, going into a smaller company so you can, dip your toes in more areas. Because you're right. When you're working for a big prestigious company, you are just kind of in that role, right? It's really hard to work cross-functionally. Okay, so I want to pivot a little bit, and I want to get into kind of the meat of this topic, which is women leadership. And I want to call out the fact, you know what? The three of us, obviously, we're Asian, right? We are minorities in the workplace. And, I don't even want to, diminish the fact that, it's hard. It's hard sometimes for folks. We're women, we're minorities, but yet we clearly, the three of us, we're very ambitious in our respective fields. I want to ask the both of you, how have you navigated challenges of being a woman in the workplace and being a minority? Do you even think of it that way also? Or do you think, what, I'm just going to do darn good work, right? I'm just curious to get into your mind because, yes, we're all women, Asian Americans, and actually we're all moms too. So we also have that as well. But I want to get your thoughts. I'm going to go with you first, Anne. How do you approach that? How do you think about that?
So I'm aware of it, but I see it as an advantage instead of a limitation or a disadvantage, because most rooms I walk to, I'm the only something, right? And it's okay. It's just like my perspective is different. And I see like my point. So this sounds weird, but every opportunity that I have and every room that I walk into where something of consequence is going to be decided, it wears on my shoulders the fact that I'm also a role model. And as a role model, the decisions that I make are not just my decisions, but they're the decisions of everybody that look up to me and will later be able to say, well, if she can do it, I can do it. If she can do it, I can do it. That is very important to me in everything that I do. So when I walk into a room, the fact that that is true for me gives me a natural arrogance. Instead of limiting me, it makes me say, I'm not just representing myself. I might not be a politician, but I have constituents and they expect me to succeed, and I will succeed. And if you're in my way, well, I'm sorry. If the two of us are having a tough conversation, I will not be the one who leaves crying.
Well, and I just have to ask, because I think a lot of people will be or just really admire that inner confidence that you have.
Yeah.
And trust me, I want to know how you do it too. How do you go in with that assertiveness and just that, like that?
Look, I'm going to give a lot of credit, and her ears are going to be burning, to Luzanne Fernandez. She became my mentor when I was a 5th year lawyer. So she really mentored me through learning how to be a partner, and in our field, learning to how to be an equity partner. There are very few minority women in the equity partner ranks, which are the owners. Okay, you can be called a partner, but you're not an owner. Being an owner was a very important goal to me. Lucianne taught me, hey, if you're in a small group and somebody has to take notes and the men turn to you, just say no. So sure enough, my first partnership retreat, not at this firm, where we were in a small group, and again, I was the only in the room. People turned to me and I said, oh no, I'm not taking notes. Lucianne told me not to. And that really empowered me. And honestly, surrounding myself with inspiring women and advocates like Jan give me a lot of strength. So I would say surround yourself with that, and like just have the confidence. You're not just representing yourself. You're all of us when you go into those halls of power at those tables, and that should empower you to speak, right? Because sometimes when we're just advocating for ourselves, we don't do that well. But if you go into every situation and you know your advocacy is not for yourself, but for everybody who's looking up to you, you will sit straighter and you will be more clear and strong. And I see that from Jan all the time. She's a big mentor and role model for me, honestly.
And I want to throw it to Jan, and I really love kind of the way you said it. It's like sometimes it is hard for people to think about how to advocate for themselves, especially with that, that Asian mentality of like, no, you just kind of do the work, right? But when you're saying that you're carrying all the people with you to be a role model, that can give you that power to really do it. So Jan, I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you ever feel like it could be a disadvantage, as a minority, as a woman, or do you not even think of it that way? You're like, you know what? I'm here to make things happen. How do you approach it?
I think when you asked the question, I kind of was thinking about a different stage of my career. I think it was different. Yeah, I totally agree with Anne. If it's nowadays, yes, I would go into any rooms. It doesn't matter who is in the room. I would think that, it would not a problem, right? Because we like Anne said, I definitely think that being Asian at this point, it's our advantage, not disadvantage, actually, because we'll go in there, we will bring in different perspectives of leadership. And it's funny though, I came from China, but for a long time, I didn't think about the thousands of years of Chinese history, or we have so many ancient leaders, that their wisdoms, all those things that could be, very helpful to us as a leader nowadays. I didn't think of that for so long, honestly. But then lately, for the past few years as a CEO, in a sudden, that kind of hit me like a Jan, like it's yes, you're in United States, but all those thousands of years of Chinese culture. You went to school from kindergarten all the way to medical school in China. All those things that you learn from there, it actually it can help you. So I started to really integrate both of the Eastern philosophy and the Western philosophy. And then kind of like when I walk into the boardroom or talk to the MEC, the medical executive team, it helped me a lot. So I mean, kind of like now in a sudden, I understand what they're thinking. Like our board members, 16 men in the boardroom, right? I don't have any female board members in our boardroom. So in a sudden, I feel like I know what they're thinking. I know what it takes to get them to understand what I'm talking about, and also for the physicians, right? Because this way, so you kind of like being a woman. I think we are a lot more holistic, and so we are more balanced. We are willing to create a win-win situation instead of just like, man, that I want to win. right? So we really often that we think about creating more win-win situation. And then I think we are definitely more empathetic. Like, we will think for the other side more. Another thing, I think that we are a lot better in the multitasking. And as a mom, you have to juggle all the stands, right? So
True.
not that I'm recommending that, but I think it as a leader, you almost have to do that, right? So, like, do I think being a Asian woman, it's a barrier? Yes, at the beginning of your career, when you speak English with an accent, people already discounted you, right? Or you're a woman leader, they think, oh, you'll be a good clinician. You speak multiple languages. You're good, to be a nurse practitioner or to be a doctor or to be in any other field too. You're a good technician because you can do you hardworking, you take instructions very well. You never talk back, right? But if you want to be a leader, then you kind of really need to find the point at that like right moment to speak up so people see you, right? And nowadays your leaders, they're or your department heads or your executive leaders, they're busy. Hardly they would be looking for someone, but then I always do. Like a Susie, who is good at what, right? Even my own kids, I would see like, this one is a more individual a performer, would be good to be a doctor. The other one is like really love to lead, right? And would be good in management and at work too. So I would constantly try to do that, but not all leaders will do that, right? They're busy with their work. So you kind of really need to make yourself visible at some point and then say, yes, I'm multilingual. It's good as a clinician. I'm really good as a manager too, or in leadership roles too, right? Somehow that you need to show that. I really like what Anne was saying. Volunteer yourself. Don't just look for something it's not all about money, trust me. If you position yourself right, money will come, right, Anne?
Yeah, I never have worried. I've
Yeah.
never worried about the money. I've worried about what am I doing and do I want to be here?
Right.
So true.
So,
I was saying, I love what you said, John. And it's like, and I love how us women, like, there's like a bond too. I know there's some gentlemen on this call. We're very happy that you're here as an ally too. But I'm really happy to see there's so many different networks and association for women like us, just women in general who come together and just offer support to one another. So I actually do want to, which by the way, we've been chatting for over 40 minutes now. I feel like it's just flown by, but I want to get into some of the questions we've been getting in. This one I've been eyeing because I see it right here. And this is actually from Sharon Lowe. So Sharon, first of all, thank you so much for your question. So your question is, how do you respond to male colleagues or leaders who perceive confident female leaders as aggressive? Mm-hmm. So let me go to you, Anne, first. How do you navigate that?
So I like to say no is a complete sentence, right? So if I don't want to do something, I will say no and just stare at the person. You literally cannot care what people are saying behind your back or thinking about you. And if someone thinks you're an aggressive woman, that reflects more on them than it does on you, right? You just keep doing you and you keep on advocating for yourself and those that you're advocating for. Look, I've had throughout the years, there's always like coded statements about you that get made when you are an assertive woman. But it's like if you, I guess for you, Jessica, the statement would be, don't read the press about yourself. Right?
True. So, yeah.
Yeah. Because I can't think about that. It's like, what is my objective? What is my goal? I need to accomplish it. And who am I accomplishing it for? Now, that doesn't mean, I think there's people like to talk about, well, you have a masculine leadership style. And I'm like, why does leadership have to be gendered? Right? I mean, what does that even mean? When you lead, you should, care about who you're leading. You should care not to hurt people's feelings, but sometimes you have to be very direct with people and you have to just say, no, that doesn't make me comfortable. I am not doing that. I do not agree with you.
Yeah.
I need to correct what you just said. These are okay things to say.
I see Connie, who's actually Connie Chow, who's in our Soulcast Media membership, and she was like, "You're too confident for me, and I need to learn more from you," which is true. And honestly, it's very admirable, kind of how you go in. But you said it, you can't let what other people say about you bother you. You are too mission focused on getting things done to worry about all of the crap, honestly, that people say, which people are going to say anyways. So
yeah, there's too much going on. I mean, the other day, apparently made a big life mistake because I volunteered to be the room mom at my son's school. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do this law thing. I'm going to do this leadership thing. I'm going to do this nonprofit that Jan and I are going to found. But you know what? I'm going to be a room mom because I never miss field trips.
I love that. Okay, John, what are your thoughts on this? Of, women being seen as too aggressive?
You know, it's okay. Whatever other people view of you, you kind of really can't take it too seriously. If they say things about you, sometimes it's because you're ahead of them, they're jealous of you. So they will create all kind of things to try to kind of pull you back, right? That's one thing. On the other hand, though, you don't need to be aggressive to win, right? Because there's and again the Chinese philosophy, water is soft, right? The rock, it's hard. But guess what? Just the water dripping on the rock over time, there's a hole on a rock, right? So meaning that women, we have our strength, being resilient, being you can be soft and win, because that's all up to your wisdom. Like how do you win, right? So you don't have to win with your fist, you can win with your brand, right? So that's I often say that. And so I think a lot of times then when you try to win a situation, or you're talking to your colleague, you don't have to fight, like aggressively fighting, but what you can do is that you can smile and listen to what your colleague got to say first, and you ask them, are you done? Are you ready to hear my point of view, right? It's so hard for them to continue to say to fight you. Sometimes you get really upset and you want to fight back, right? But it's better to take a step back, take a deep breath, and listen to, even though you know that it's a whole bunch of crap, but still listen, right? When
Listen
he's
to
done,
her,
he said,
she's
he's
right.
done. Yeah. So
She's right.
are you willing to hear my point of view now? So sometimes that you take a step back, and then, or sometimes it's okay to say, I always talk to my staff too, I'm sorry if I give you that impression that, you're sorry doesn't mean you're at fault. Sometimes the people think that then when they say that, so I'm sorry, that means that you're at fault. It's not. When I'm saying that I'm sorry for whatever situation, it's a situation, or I'm sorry for you are feeling that way.
True.
Right? It doesn't mean it's my fault. So that way, then the other side will feel like, oh, like I really probably should back off a little too, right? So that you create that situation that now you can have a calmly a conversation, right? A lot of time it's hard to hit people when you're smiling, right? Or it kind of really that sometimes that we can, as a woman, I think that we have it in us. Just find it, like in that moment, like when you feel like a blowing up, especially in front of the kids, you're not going to blow up, right? Because you don't want your kid to see you that way. So that's why it's in you. So take a step back and kind of work it out in a different way. It will work. And then you don't have to be viewed aggressive and win. At times, yeah, people do try to take advantage of women, and they talk over you and kind of thing. And then point it out too. Just say, do you realize that you're talking over me? Then people usually kind of like calmly though, not pointing fingers and say, you're talking over me, and kind of then you get into a fight. So you come down first, and then you kind of like really you control the situation basically. That I think that we can do that as a woman, and we don't have that big ego. We have to win. And I think that often that I have to do that a lot, right? So like, with the uh, with physicians and all kind of thing, that's why you kind of sit back and really watch and smile and listen. And then later on, then you will see situations are totally different.
I think it's really kind of what both of you said. It's like, don't focus so much on that fear of like, oh, am I being too aggressive? Is it going to be too off-putting? I think, knock on wood, I mean, I am optimistic about the fact that people are a lot more open-minded of the fact, like, if they can see that, hey, yes, you may be a little bit more direct, but what you say is sound, they respect that, right? So I think just kind of going in with that mentality. I want to get to another question that we have from the audience. This one's from Wendy Lee, Zhao Wendy Lee. So, when I, an Asian woman, propose a new idea, the leadership disagrees with me most of the time. But when my male colleagues propose the same idea in the same meeting, the leadership will now agree and say that's a great idea. How do I address an issue like that? The issue is basically saying somebody else is taking credit for your idea. And go if you want to go first.
So I guess I would love to break that down a little bit. So is the person taking credit after you have stated your idea, or is it in different settings where, you propose something and in one setting, but then someone proposed something in a different setting that was the same, and they accepted the male's statement. So I guess I would want to know a little more on that. But when I propose something and I think it's the right thing and it's not accepted, I need to sit back and think why. Was it how I presented it?
Mm-hmm.
Is the feedback valid? So, in the moment when you're proposing something and it's not accepted, it's okay to say, hey, what about what I proposed do you would you have liked to see differently?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any feedback that you would give me in terms of how you would like to see it? I guess my bottom line is it's not so much that you're not taking no for an answer, it's just that you're asking questions. Well, why not? What about this? What about that? Now, if you are in a situation where someone else is taking credit for your, it's very difficult to point that out in the moment, because then you're
Right.
going to seem like you're
Mhm.
too sensitive, right? And I don't say that in a negative way. Just be observant to that. And if someone is a credit hog, the one thing I don't think we women do a lot of times is you'll notice at the beginning of every meeting or every conversation, there's always a pause before things get started. I always jump in and start talking at the pause or before the pause. My story comes out first. My agenda comes out first. This is the purpose of this call. This is the purpose of this meeting. This is what I would like to present to you today. That's one way you can deal with someone that you know is going to hog your credit. Wait for that pause, right? Because sometimes the meeting will convene, everyone will be sitting down, and maybe the facilitator of the meeting will start. There is always a pause. Wait for the pause and make your move.
Love it. John, do you have anything to add about somebody taking your idea? How do you overcome something like that?
Yeah, I agree with Anne. Like, you don't want to challenge in the meeting. That is going to sound like you guys are fighting, right? So it's not good whenever you get into a fighting. So I think it's okay after the meeting, then you go talk to if it's a supervisor or the team leader, and to say calmly though, not to accuse that why didn't you take mine? It's the same, right? And
Right.
you talk about it, that is that the way. So I understand that I presented this to you that you didn't accept, and then when so and so presented, it's apparently it's the same idea. Then you said it was in a very friendly way, just in a way that you want to learn, you want to improve next time, right? And just say, is it the way that I presented, or was I not clear? I want to improve, like in the future, so I can do better. Can you please give me some advice? That way. I mean, you point it out in a way, you let someone took my credit, right? But without accusing him for doing
Right.
that, and you give him or her the steps to walk down to save face, basically, right? And then on the other hand, you also tell him that I'm aware of this and I'm willing to learn from you. Yeah, I need advice from you. That I think would be a more positive way to
I
approach.
love that. That's a great approach. It's like you're letting them know it was your idea, but you're acknowledging, like, hey, what do you think I can do to better present my idea next time, so that now they understand, oh, yeah, that's right. It was your idea. So you're also getting them to acknowledge that too. Okay, I have to say, we are almost out of time, and I feel like there's actually so many questions that we actually got, but I want to just kind of end on this note. And maybe there is no right answer to this, but somebody asked, how do you balance motherhood with your career? This is always a question. How do you balance being a mom and being a career driven woman? And why don't you go first with this one, as we kind of
It's
close out this talk?
yeah, it's really hard. And I have to say that just as with other women, like my husband is my biggest ally and my biggest supporter in that. I have rarely had to turn down anything that I wanted to do because he's the first one to say, you know, go do, go be you, go. And he's like, I'm not jealous. Like, I support your success. That's the guy you want to marry. I support your success, right? Because otherwise it's very difficult. And he does a lot of the like tasks that would normally be quote unquote gendered. He does them. He like, it was funny because he's taken a step back from his career to help support mine. And this is a funny story. We were filling out an application and it said, what is your occupation? And I was like, I think you're a homemaker. He's like, no, aren't I a domestic? I'm like, no, you're a homemaker. That's a real job. It's so valuable. But I support him. He supports me. And just big shout out. I could not do it. I could not do it.
Jian, what are your thoughts on
So
balancing?
I think we're lucky. I for one too. My husband's very supportive. I never at any point of my career said, "Let me go back talk to my husband to see whether I can go to anything." I always say, "Yes, I'll make it happen." Kind of thing. And then, I mean, you can hire a nanny. And I
Mhm.
was at one time, at one point that my husband was travel a lot, and I had two young kids. I dropped them off, one in preschool, one in kindergarten, and then go to work, and then pick them up one after the other. It's workable, really. It's workable, and you hire a nanny to help, right? So yes, I was very, very clear that I want my career. I will not, I will be a good mom too. I'm like, both of my kids now, they in college. One graduate from college, it's fine. So it's doable. Let me share one positive moment. I think that to show you that it actually worked, right? So when I worked full time and also went back to my doctorate degree, like I went back to study for my doctorate degree. And then so when I studied, I came back from work and started, had dinner and started working on my homework. Then Melinda, my daughter, came to join me, who worked on her homework. And then my son, who finished his homework already at school, he brought a guitar. He was playing guitar while Melinda and I were doing our homework. And here you go. I left my head. I saw my husband videotaping us doing, like working together. So it was a really a positive role model and talk about earlier, I think, to our kids. That way they see, I never told my kids that you have to go to graduate school, but they automatically plan for graduate school, right? Because they did all their application for everything. And I, didn't even want me to be part of their application or anything. So you can be really a positive role model to your kids when you work hard, when you work up on your career. It doesn't have to be a barrier to your family life, really. People talk about balance, work-life balance. It actually, I think it's more like integration of both. You
I was
can
just
do
thinking,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
really. It's doable.
it's
Yeah,
an integrated model. It's not a
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love that. I
yeah.
mean, I have to lean on Anne and John, both of you, because I'm a new mom, right? So my son is 9 months old, and I'm figuring out what does it mean, right, to be a working mom while also be a mom. And
You don't need to sleep as much as you thought. That's
that's
the
true.
first thing you'll learn.
You're like, "Oh, I can function with 4 hours of sleep."
Exactly.
But I do have to echo, like, my husband is very, very supportive as well. But also, it's having a community to help too, right? It would
Yeah.
be almost impossible for me to even be here with you amazing ladies if I didn't have help with my son too. So, you know, kudos to kind of the network that makes it happen. So at this point, I want to say thank you to you both for joining me. I had an absolute amazing time just chatting with you. And for all the folks who've stayed on this entire time listening to our chat, I'm hoping you all took away some golden nuggets as you think about your own career, as you navigate challenges, which all of us face challenges in the workplace. Anne and Jen, how can people get connected with you if they have further questions?
They can look us up. I mean, I'm Ruda, Aruda at bzbm.com. If you need any, career advice or whatever, I mean, don't email me if you're a weirdo, but if you're normal and you just want to, ask me some questions and follow up, I'll be happy to talk to you.
I love that. And I'm sure LinkedIn as well. Jan, how can people get connected with you?
Yeah, I think through LinkedIn would be good. Or you can send your questions to Jessica. Jessica can forward to me too.
True.
And I think that, yeah, yes, I will help. I love to help young people, young leaders. And that's what I have been doing, actually.
Yeah.
So thank you both for taking the time to join me today. For those who are here, we shared a lot of really great tips. Here at Soulcast Media, we have our VIP communications pass. You can see it here on your screen. We basically just take all the tips that we share. We basically organize it for you. So check out the VIP communications pass because it could be great if you attend a lot of our Soulcast Media live events. So, Anne, Dr. Jian Zhang, I want to thank you both for being here. And for all of those who are watching, take care. And I look forward to seeing you all at our next Soulcast Media Live, which you can find information on our website, soulcastmedia.com. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.